We've got a point release of DMD that doesn't look like your normal, everyday, ordinary point release. DConf Online 2021 is complete and was a lot of fun. The Symmetry Autumn of Code 2021 is winding down as we enter into the final milestone, and the DLang Foundation and Symmetry Investments are hiring. Stick around for the details. DMD 2.098.1 was released in the middle of December. Now, usually a point release like this does not ship with a lot of bug fixes. Mostly just some regressions are fixed and maybe some critical issues. But here we see 106 Bugzilla issues are fixed. Now, there's a lot of regressions here. 26 of them in this release are fixed. But then we have this long list of non-regression bug fixes. And you'll find that many of them, most of them, in fact, are related to ImportC. And we've also got some for the OpenBSD port. So the good news is if you are planning to use ImportC, it's getting better and better all the time. And already there have been reports of people using it for a variety of C libraries successfully. Now, you do still have to pre-process any C code that you compile with ImportC. In Walter's DConf Online 2021 talk, Great Programming with ImportC, he addressed the preprocessor issues, and he outlined why it's a problem to try to include a C preprocessor in DMD. He could potentially include the Warp preprocessor, also called DMPP, the Digital Mars preprocessor that he wrote for Facebook a few years ago. But one of the big issues with that is the extensions that a lot of compilers have in their preprocessor macros. And in the DLang Foundation's monthly meeting in December, we discussed this and why supporting these different compiler extensions would be problematic. And Walter at that point said, it's just about time for DMD to start invoking the C preprocessor. And what that means is you won't need to preprocess any C code for ImportC yourself. You just hand it off to DMD. DMD will recognize it's C, will hand it off to the ImportC portion of the compiler. The compiler will then invoke the system preprocessor and handle the preprocessing for you. This probably won't be 100% perfect. You will need to include a special file probably with some predefined macros that are common on your system, and that will need to ship with the decompiler. But this is something that we are moving toward with ImportC. And when it's implemented, it'll be a lot easier to bring C code into your D programs than it is today. DConf Online 2021 took place on November 20th and 21st. We premiered 8 pre-recorded talks. We had 8 live Q&A sessions, 1 with each speaker. Each session took place in parallel with each talk. We had a live coding session with Adam Rupa. He's a prolific D programmer who has a number of source files available for the D community. We also had an Ask Us Anything session with the 2 language maintainers, Walter Bright and Attila Neves, as well as our pull request and issue manager, Razvan Nitu. Links to each talk, its associated Q&A session, and the slides, if any, 2 of the talks had no slides, are all available in the schedule, in the description of each talk for both day 1 and day 2. The last real-world DConf we had was in 2019 in London. It was sponsored by Symmetry Investments, and they were going to sponsor the 2020 edition, but we had to cancel, of course, because of the pandemic. We didn't even discuss a D conference in 2021. Of course, we started the online conference in 2020, continued in 2021. We'll continue that in 2022. But right now, we are exploring the possibility of returning to the real-world DConf, quite possibly in London, in 2022. And we're looking at doing it later in the year than usual. Normally, we have it in May. We'll probably be doing it in late summer this time around if we're able to. But we'll have more on that once we have verification. But I just want you to know that we're really seriously looking forward to getting back to it, and we are trying to figure out the best way we can do that. Speaking of Symmetry Investments, they are hiring. They're looking for D programmers. They're also looking for people to fill several other roles that they have available at the company. They put up a monthly announcement at Hacker News, and you'll find a link to the December announcement in the description below. It lists the roles they're looking for, has some information about the company, links to some of their talks and their GitHub repository. You'll find a link to this announcement in the video description below. And Symmetry started sponsoring 3 positions for the D Language Foundation in 2021. They are continuing to sponsor the positions into 2022. One of our positions is open right now. It's for a pull request and issue manager. We have all the information you need for that job on our blog in this post that you're looking at right now, and I'll have a link to that in the video description below. The person who fills this position will be working with Razvan Nitu, who is already one of our pull request managers. And this is all of your responsibilities right here. This is a very valuable position to the D community. Since Razvan has been working in this job, he has put together some strike teams. The strike teams have been closing issues. Razvan has gotten stale pull requests resolved in whatever way they needed to be resolved. He's slimmed down our PR queues. And with another pull request manager, we can up that volume even higher. So if you're interested in the job and you meet the requirements here that we have in the blog post, please contact us. social@dlang.org. Send us your resume and let us know what you can do for us. The position pays $25,000 per year. November and December saw the completion of the 2nd and 3rd milestones in the 2021 edition of the Symmetry Autumn of Code. The event started on September 15th with 5 participants. Now that milestone 3 has completed, we have 2 participants still in the event. Now, that doesn't mean all of the projects have failed. It just means that not all of the participants will be completing the event. Now, the 2 projects that are still going on for milestone 4 are the one to replace D runtime hooks with templates and the one to implement support for D in the LLVM debugger. Now, Luis, who is working on this one, he actually got commit access to LLVM, and he's now part of the team that reviews, accepts, and merges D-related code into the LLVM tree. The project Rethinking the Default Class Hierarchy, Robert Aaron submitted a DIP, a D improvement proposal, back at the end of milestone 1 in October, and he continued to work on it through milestone 2. So even though Robert will not be continuing the Symmetry Autumn of Code, the DIP has been submitted and it's scheduled to go into the first round of community review on January 10th. As for the lightweight D runtime, Dylan Graham started the Symmetry Autumn of Code with this project already in progress. This is his own personal project. And during milestone 2, he had some difficulties and had to withdraw from the event and has delayed work on the project. But even though he's no longer in the SAOC event, as soon as he is able to, he's going to continue working on the lightweight D runtime. So this is something we're really looking forward to see in D's future. And the project to improve Dub by solving dependency hell, well, if you aren't familiar with it, the goal of this project is to resolve a situation that occurs when using Dub with 2 different libraries that have a dependency on different versions of a 3rd library. So you get a conflict with the 2 versions. And right now this is an error. It would be nice to be able to build a project with Dub despite the version conflict. This project aimed to do that. This project was not Amit's idea. This came from the D project idea repository. It's a collection of potential projects that volunteers can work on in the D community. Some are suitable for the Google Summer of Code. Some are suitable for the Symmetry Autumn of Code. And in this case, he picked the project from this list. The SAOC judges had some issues with this project from the very beginning. They weren't sure if it was the right approach to solve the problem. And in a foundation meeting prior to the Symmetry Autumn of Code, an alternative was suggested, and Amit's proposal was accepted for SAOC with the condition that he explore the alternative approach first. The alternative proved to be a dead end, so he started working on his original proposal, and unfortunately he encountered some serious issues that have prevented him from making progress. So he's no longer participating in the Symmetry Autumn of Code, and we're going to have to put off this idea of solving dependency hell in Dub until either those issues are resolved or someone comes up with another approach. Milestone 4 ends on January 15th. That will be the final submission from all of the SAOC participants, at which point one of the 2 remaining participants will be selected for a final $1,000 payment and an all-expense paid trip to the next real-world D conference. If you are interested in contributing to the D programming language and helping our community grow, there are several ways you can do it. In the same blog post that we've already seen, with a link below in the description, you can read about how to contribute and follow the appropriate links to make it happen. And that's it for me for the November-December D programming language update. On behalf of the D Language Foundation, I want to wish you a very happy and safe 2022. I'll be back here in early March with the January-February update. See you then.